So I'm creating the memo in your guys' shared drive, so you have access to it on Google Share, so you will be able to look at the code as well if you need to refer to it in the future. First question looks at our entity class. Our entity classes are based often in a test situation that obviously often draw a class diagram for this, but it's asking you to create a flight class with fields for time, destination, and client name. These fields should only be accessible by this class. The fact that it says only accessible by this class means that it is private. And if we take a look at the text file, which you should copy across after you've created your project, you should copy it across to the location you're working with. So in this example, I'm doing it inside the M2018 folder on the Google Shared Drive under Memos under Memo 201. So I'll copy across the text file into your project folder so that the text file will be able to be read from. The number of times people during exams or during projects say, oh, but I can't read from my text file, and they freak out and they really mess up their whole entire project and they battle, it's because they didn't copy across the text file. So it is a small step, but it's a very important step that the location of your text file needs to be inside there. Now if I take a look at this, this has the various flights in it. It's got 120, which if we look at the question paper, we've got time, destination, and client name. So if we look at the time, 120, destination, Drakensberg, client name, Tom. So if I look at that data type wise, that would be int, string, string. Does that make sense? So we can sort of identify what the data types, even though it hasn't been specified yet. Normally in the exam it would be, but you guys should use it inside anyway, as well to be able to work out those things. Java class, so we create a class called flight, and in it you should put it into a package. It's good package to put it in a package. It's good etiquette or programming etiquette. We've determined our data types of our various items. Yeah, so we determine the data type of each of them. So let me just zoom into the video, we'll call it a bit better. And it says that it's only accessible by this class, so it means it's private. We know this stuff, this is regurgitation stuff, you cannot get this wrong in anything. Int, time, semicolon, private, string. What was the two strings? It was client name and destination, right? Yep. So it's destination. Just a shortcut if you guys want to use it, you can create, if they're both of the same data type, you can declare them on the same line by just separating it as a comma. It does the exact same thing, but if you're lazy, you can do that. It's not any difference actually. And it asks then, so we've created the class with those fields. It asks for a default constructor. The general rules of a default constructor, it should always initialize all the fields. Should be initialized to default values. The default values haven't been given, so we just give it default what we consider. The next question asks us, create a fully parameterized constructor. Fully parameterized constructor is a constructor that will initialize all fields through its parameters. So it will receive all fields from whichever class or object is calling it. Accesses and mutators, and override the toString method. The toString doesn't ask for anything fancy, often it would. Reminder for the video land, alt insert shortcuts, open up this, you go whichever you want. So I went setters and getters and I just created all of them. Now I'm going to create the toString. This one didn't specify change the format of it, but I think the format's going to be ugly, so I'm going to be change it anyway. So I'm going to say time, full colon time, and that's in seconds, by the way. So I'll just say the seconds. Maybe a later question might ask me to do some stuff with it, but anyway, so seconds to, and then it's the destination that are going to, and then it's client. And it's got the client there as well. So you can modify that to look as you want by manipulating the string concatenation. So the way the strings will concatenate. Good question. The question was, because I paused the video, was what does it mean by the fact that I say override? And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because it's worthwhile doing. When you create a class, you'll see there that if I go alt insert, you'll see that there's add property or anything. Sorry, let me rather go that. Let me go alt insert. You'll see that there's an option override method. So even inside my alt inserts, there's an override method, and you'll see there that there's a class called object. An object, as soon as you create a class, it inherits an object parameter. So there's a structure which is an object, which is how classes operate, and which already has a toString method in it. So when you actually create a toString, it adds an annotation of @override on it, which means that in the parent class there is also a toString, but you're not hiding that one and you're overriding it with this one. So it's no longer going to use the parent one. So for argument's sake, you see that right now, I've commented out my toString, right? If I now go and I create a main class, I'm just going to create a Java main class called UE test UE, so to test this. And in my test UE, if I create a instance of my flight class, so if I go flight f is equal to new flight, so that's not how you spell flight. Oh hello. Okay, and I use the fully parameterized constructor, so I say it was 120 seconds. The destination was Drakensberg, so that's not how you spell Drakensberg, but whatever. And then the client name was Frank. What you'll notice that when I cite this, what does cite do? System out the print line, it prints to the command line, right? If I go F and I actually print out plus F, now you'll notice right now my toString is commented out, which means it doesn't exist, right? Would you rather me delete it to prove that, or you guys get that it doesn't exist? Okay, so it doesn't exist, but yet if I look here, can I call toString? Yes, toString exists as a method. It operates because it exists already, because an object, the parent, takes on their properties and one of those things that it's got there. Now when you run it, you'll see that what it will print out to my command line is working.flight, and this tells me this is the blueprint or the class that it's from at, which means that the memory location, it's at 15 db9742, and that's the RAM address of that object. So it just tells me the base construct of it, and that's what the default toString does. When we create a toString, we're literally overwriting that with this, changing what the toString is going to look like. And now when I override it, instead of sending it back that, which is pretty useless to us in this instance, it's useless to us. I mean, if you guys ever take on coding further, you might need the memory address and things like that. But now it says their time is 120 seconds to Drakensberg client Frank. So it gives us a more sense of what the object is rather than where the memory location or class it works from. So that was a longer answer for what the override is, but that is quite important that you understand it, especially at a grade later levels. I'll teach you a bit of inheritance next term and things like that. All right. Moving on. Next question. We've done with this method now. We now go to the log class. The log class says create a class called log with a global field array of the flight class, allowing a maximum of 500 accounts to keep track of it. This array should only accessible from this class, meaning it's private. So let's get started. So start off, we create a class, a new Java class, and we're going to call it log. Remember, naming convention states classes are capital letters, fields and methods and all the rest are small letters. So now log is going to have a private, because we know our array should be private. Now the data type it's of the flight class when we have an array. So remember, who can access it? So the accessor, the data type, which in this case is an object type. So the object type that we're going to work is flight, square brackets to indicate that it's an array. We then give it a name. I'm going to call it flight plural. And because this is the name of a field, it's small letters. Because this is the name of a class, it is capital letters. You guys get this? So flight is a class, and we're saying it's an array, and we've given it a name, flight. It then said it wanted it to be size 500. So here, technically what we're doing is we're initializing the size of the array. Some people like to do this in the constructor, so they might end it here and then set the size in the constructor. I'm going to do it both ways so you guys can just see it. But as if I go equals new flight 500, you're stipulating the size of the array, so the number of positions that it would be able to point to. So you're literally creating pointers of it. And you then asked you to create a counter. Now, that is an integer, and we normally call it num flights, purely because we are keeping track of the number of flights. So we'll count on. We used Rico in the example we did in front of the class. We used Rico as a counter to keep track of the next position. Now, the next thing that you'll notice, that's question asked there. The other way of doing that is I could have done this. In your constructor, you should definitely initialize num flight to equal to 0, and that's technically that question finished. Because you should always initialize your num flights to be 0, because at the beginning, no objects have been initialized in the flights array. You can also do this. inside the default constructor. Some people prefer, and it does kind of make more logical sense to do that. Your guys' choice on which way you want to do it, but you mustn't forget to do that, because at these two, you'll only get the full marks for this question. Question 6, you'll only get for the full marks if you actually initialize your flight array to which size it's going to be, and you initialize to 0. Yeah, the coding's the exact same, and when it's up here, it doesn't have a logical sequence. It means it will happen all the time. In other words, every single time you create this object, it will happen. Whereas here, when you call the default constructors, a default constructor's job is to initialize all fields. And the reason why you would mostly use it here is because, for example, what if I had a fully constructor that received those in there? In which case, the size of the array and everything was established elsewhere. So now you're basically then creating it a size of 500, then you're overwriting it to a size of whatever array went through, which then doesn't make as much sense logically, but at a metric level, we don't actually really care. So you can just, we're not going to ask you to receive it through as a parameter most likely. So that's why you initialize the size. This is better coding, so I'd rather keep it like this, because this is a little bit better coding, because in the default constructor, you want it to do it like that. Okay, now, so question 6. Now, the next one says, create an add flight method to receive the time of the flight, the destination, and the name through parameters, and initialize a new position of the array using these fields that increment the counter. So it says it's going to receive everything through my parameters. So if I look at this, I go public void, because it doesn't say return anything, add flight, and it tells me to receive all of the variables needed. Now, a little shortcut, a common mistake that can happen, we are sending through to construct this. I often will copy my fully parameterized constructor of my entity class into here, because those are the fields that I'm going to need to receive, and then I make sure the order is the same. Because, for example, there could be an error where I went client name and destination here, but in my flight it was destination and client name. So I could accidentally send the destination through to the client and vice versa. Does that make sense? So if you copy and paste, you know the order is the exact same. Do you guys get that? Now, from there, we're going to then, it says there to initialize a new position. So remember our counter, I went through this example on the board with the physical, you guys sitting on the chairs. Rico was the counter, and he was at the position where the new object should be put. So in this case, who is our Rico? Num flight. That is our counter keeping track of which position we are currently initializing to. So equals to num flight, and we then say is equal to a new, so we're creating, instantiating a new object. We are creating. Remember we went, oh, and then there was a James, and then, oh, that was a bad one. Then Jenna was created, and so forth. As you create the objects, you can initialize them into the thing. So new flight, so we initialize them, and we send through those items to it. Then what we need to do, we need to move Rico to the next person, or in this case, we need to increment our counter to the next position in our array. So that was when we moved Rico from one chair to the next new chair, where it's an empty chair. Do you guys remember that example? Okay, so do you guys follow the logic of this? Yeah. That's that method there. We now move down to question 8. Now question 8 is where we get into the text file manipulation. So this is 13 minutes and 30 seconds, timestamp. So here we're going to be reading from the text file. We're going to be creating our default constructor, which we already started up here, but now we're going to be reading from a text file. Now, convention dictates that the file name is received through your parameter, because potentially, you remember when you do your installing, right? When you install something, so you can often choose different paths for installations or whatever it might be, and there might be a scenario where your text file might be in a different location. Sometimes there might be a config file that would whatever. It means it could be dictated from somewhere else where the file is, or the path of the file. Maybe that should be called path of file. But what we do is we just keep our text file exactly in our project folder, so we don't actually really need to specify the path, but just the file name, which is fine. So we are going to create a file. Now remember, control spacebar and use the java.io. So you'll see there's a whole bunch of other stuff, but import java.io. You must use your control spacebar because it imports. You can import manually for some schools that use JGrasp to code Java in. They have to do all the imports that they know they need. So they have to learn to import. If they use it, they must import this. You guys use NetBeans, control spacebar, enter. It will then import, but you do have to use control spacebar, enter. Otherwise, you have to remember what you have to import. Because otherwise, if every project you were doing consisted of all possible classes you could utilize that was created by Java. Every single project would be 500 megabytes, a gigabyte, or whatever, which would be kind of useless. You don't want every single project. So I'll only put into this project the classes that are required to be used for this project. So importing them makes them available for this class. So in this case, control spacebar imports it for us, and we go file F is equal to new file, and it asks, you'll see that when I go control spacebar, oh look, it's a constructor. We are constructing a new instance of an object file. And in this case, we want the string path name, which is going to have the path name. There are different elements to it as well, but we're just going to have the path name, and the path file will have that. This just tells me that there's an external object that exists. It tells the computer that. Now we actually want to scan through it. So we go scanner, again, control spacebar. You import the java.util. Don't use these ones. Use the java.util one. Again, it will import java.util.scanner. That's why you must use control spacebar. Otherwise, you must remember the import steps. Okay. And we're going to go scf is equal to new scanner. And we are going to scan through the file F. Now, immediately as I do this, you'll see that an error comes up. And the reason why the error comes up is because it has been unhandled or unreported exception. So this scanner throws an exception, which means potentially there could be an error that is called there. So that method, whoever coded that method, they threw an error. And right now, I'm just not going to actually catch it. We can choose to catch it and deal with it now. But I'm not going to catch it. I'm going to throw it. Bam. So basically, whoever created the scanner also had a throw exception, which means when there is an unexpected error, like it can't find the file, it doesn't know what exists, there's something has occurred which it doesn't know what to do with. It throws the error saying, please handle it, because I don't know what to do with it. So right now we're saying, I don't know what to do with the error if it happens, so I'm going to throw it because I don't know what to do with it. Now that means, as soon as I've done that, you'll notice my test GUI will then come up with, when it actually saves and refreshes itself, la 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 la. Oh, I didn't create an instance of my log, sorry. So you'll notice, like, if I create an instance of my log class to do my test, log is equal to new log. You'll notice there, so if I then said flights.txt to test it, you'll notice that it will come up with a red underline. And the reason why is because the constructor throws an error. So here I can choose to handle it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to surround it with the try-catch, and then in the try-catch I can then go sir, which is system.error.println error in constructor space plus ex. So now throw out an error message of what actually went wrong there. So you have to handle it at some point. If you do not handle it here, you'd have to handle it in UI. This test UI is just what I'm creating so we can test our objects. I must just check that it is called flights.txt. Yes, it is. So I can run a test to work with this. Do you guys get that? So this method is just so I can test my project while I'm coding it. You guys follow? Yeah. Okay, so now if I go to log method, I've now got my add flight class. It then tells me, if I read the rest of the question, it says that will initialize the array using data from there. So I need to initialize my array from the data. So I need to loop through this scanner. So while scf.hasNext, which means it's going to continue looping. Because remember, I used the example that a scanner is like having a cursor in here. And it means it's going to continue looping until the cursor gets to the endpoint. When there's nothing more, it cannot move any further. It will continue looping until the cursor is there. Now, hasNext does not actually physically move the cursor. It just says, is there something after the cursor? The statement next line or next will move the cursor, but not hasNext. hasNext just says, is there something after? Do you guys follow? Now, if I go now string, this is just a nice common practice. We say record, so we're going to get the first record from here. We say scf dot next line, which will then return the whole entire line. So what it will do is it will go, whoop, take the whole line, and it will put it into a temporary variable called record. So now we've separated that line from the rest of the document, and our cursor in our file will now be down there. Does this make sense? Yeah. So it's literally separated all of that into, well, it put it into a variable, and our cursor goes down here. Technically, that is still there. So the cursor just moves down to the bottom, and this is in a temporary variable, so we can work with it. Now, while it's in that temporary variable, we can now scan through that separately. Now, guys, there is other ways to do this. I could not separate it first, and I could just literally scan through it as it stood. But it then becomes more complicated when it becomes more different objects within the one text file. Life becomes more difficult. If you separate the record out first and then look at that record as a separate string rather than what it was there, it makes your life more it's more scaffolded. And with scaffolding, it makes your life easier to solve the next problem. Do you guys get that? So I'm suggesting this, but it is not the only way of doing it. You can go ahead and from the beginning work that. So I'm going to say scan a record now, and this scanner is where we're going to scan the actual text file. So we're going to say scanner, this is now going to be a string, so from record, and now we're going to set our record. What is our delimiter? To use the delimiter hash, so the hashtag is what is going to delimit it, and we are then going to separate it into, we need an integer for time, so int time is equal to sc rec dot next int. The next one is string destination, and that would be equal to crec dot next. And our next one is client name, which would then be screc dot next. It's a good idea. In an exam, you would have the text file in front of you, but it is a good idea to relate to it. So, time, destination, name. Sweet, we've got it in the right order. So, because we've said that the delimiter here is hash, and now we're working through the record, it will literally dot next int would return 120, and then it'll go to the cursor will move after the hash. That next will return Dravkinsberg, then the cursor will move after the next hash. Okay, we Tom, sweet, and then it will continue, then it'll loop around. Do you guys get that? And we'll carry, then it will get the next one from the next, sorry, excuse me. So we'll then delete that because once it closes, if you declare something here, as soon as you get outside of your indent or outside of this loop or goes back to the beginning again, it no longer exists. That's why it's a local variable. In other languages, you have what's called depreciation. So I can't remember, like in certain languages you use something like that. And what that would do is it would mean it destroy that memory reference, which means that record no longer exists. It unreserves that memory. So that would unreserve the memory address. We don't need to do that because in Java, as soon as you're outside, if I called something, we tabbed it. But you can basically, if you've indented everything correctly, you can basically look at it. A variable, a local variable, is only valid while it is within that indent. So as soon as we get to an outer indent or a lower level indent, everything declared in there no longer exists. It gets destroyed. But what we want to do here is we want to actually add the flight. Sorry, I forgot to do that step. So we actually need to then call the add flight method and send through the time, the destination, and the client name. And we separated that question as a separate thing to add flight. When you get to a later level, right now I'm going to ask you in separate steps, but they might just tell you, read it from the text file into your array. They won't tell you to create an add flight method. It is worth doing. Do you guys hear me? It is worth doing because it separates the steps into a logical step of adding something to an array, and you can use it later on as well. Alright, moving on from that. Okay, so this is working. The next question states to us, create a toString method that will return each flight separated by a blank line. Okay, so that's actually, whenever we're dealing with, we want to create a toString method, so we're overriding the toString method. We're not going to tick either of them. And what you do with this is you create a blank string that will have nothing in it, and we're going to populate that and we're going to return that afterwards. But the first thing we're going to do is we are going to populate it with every single individual element. So we need to loop through our positions in our array, and to do that, for tab, and you loop up until num flight. So you loop up until Rico. So like I showed you guys when you're writing on a piece of paper, you would go and you would collate every object toString or whatever it returns, you'll collate it and then return it. So we're going to say s_all plus equals flights position I dot toString plus, and it said separated by a blank line, which means I need two enters. So enter to go to the next line, enter again to leave a blank line. That's what that will do, and then we return S all. That's as easy as it is. I know I did it quite quickly, but literally you're just looping through individual positions in the flight array. You're getting the two-string there. Side note, if your program expects a string, it will defaultly call the two-string. This and this will do the exact same thing. But this just, I'm leaving it like this just so you can see, just in case another memo you might come across doesn't have a .2 string there. Don't get confused. It's the same thing. If it expects a string, it will call the two-string. So let's test it. So now in here, we're going to then go start tab log two-string \n. So this \n. Oops. I have no idea what \c obviously isn't anything. And then we'll go l.toString. So we're going to call the log.toString, and you'll notice that when I play it now, at the bottom here, it'll show there 120 seconds to Drakensberg, client Tom, 60 seconds to Kruger, client Sam. So all of them are now read from the text file, are now in my array, and my toString now operates where it will display the file. You guys get that? Now, the next question asks, in there, where am I on? It says there, create a called get total flight time, which will return the total flight time of all flights. So, sweet. So we need to get total flight time of all flights. So in my log, public string total, sorry, it said get total flight time, right? So it's an int. So I'll return the total flight time. It's an int total flight get total flight time, and it's set there for all destinations. So we then go int total is equal to 0 semicolon. We then return total, which will be 0 if right now because we haven't looped through anything. We're working with an array, so we loop through our array, which we go from that until none flight. We then will go total. We'll increment to our total, so we'll append to it what is in the flight position I.get flight time. Get time, sorry. So flight time is just time. So that will then increment it to the total, and it will get the total flight time. Do you guys get this? Now, that is literally it. So I want to now test it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment this out. So // I'm now going to test the other one. I'm going to go start tab, and I'm going to then say log total flight time ; space plus l.get total flight time. Sweet. Run it. See if it works. Total log flight time 520. I just want to get rid of this other two-string because it's annoying me. That was just to test my flight class. So if I press play now again, okay, total flight time 520. Sweet. Are you guys happy with this? Yes, no? Okay. Now, next one. The key aspects of anything to do with an array is the idea of looping through the array. I'm going to just spend a little bit of, just do something quickly to just try to clarify the idea of this, hopefully. Is we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, we have up to 500. Hey, there's 512 there, but anyway, whatever. Okay, so we've got all these pointers. Now, they don't use up any real memory. I mean, they're tiny. So it's not the end of the world. But what we do is we create a num flight, which will keep track of the position in the array we're on. So to start off with, the num flights is 0. As soon as we create one, it would create a new flight. So the new flight would be, for argument's sake, Drakensberg was 120 to Drakensberg, and it was, what was the other thing? Line name, I think it was Tom. So it creates the first one, and what it will do is here the pointer, it would create the object, and this memory address will point to the object. So it will then go G3, which means it's pointing to, and we then increment num flights. Do you guys get that? So we've created the object, and we would then go ahead and add it. We'll add another one here. So I'm just going to make up stuff. It's not necessarily going to be the same as the one that's on that we got here, but Durban Sam, and then that would go okay. G4. Now remember, memory addresses aren't always given in sequence like this because there's also a whole bunch of different programs using the memory locations at the same time. So I don't think we could just do this. So 60 to Namibia, and that's Frank. And then, so then we'd add that, and as we add that, we increment, and we will go G5, and so forth. Do you guys get that? So now when you're working with anything like the toString, we had to loop. We had to go through each individual position and get the two strings. So we would have to get this toString, then this toString, then this string. So we loop up until num flights. So we get this ones, we get this ones, we get this ones. Total flight time, same thing. We loop. We get zeros flight time, 120. We get Durban's flight time, 20. We get Namibia's flight time, 60. Do you guys get that? So that is what this loop is doing. Is literally we're just looping individuals. So I will start at 0, it will go 0, 1, 2, and then it will stop where num flights is. So depending on how many we've added, it would stop at a different time. Do you guys get that? Now we use num flights because we don't have to loop every single time through to the length of the array, because then we'll loop all the way down there through a whole bunch of useless information. Do you guys get that? Now, in moving on, so now it says, let me pause the video quick, then I'll answer your question. The next question starts to introduce a new concept. We have a method called getTotalFlightTime, right? Now, before I get onto that, let's look at my flight class here. Technically, I have two methods of the exact same name, right? Flight and flight. And when I create an instance of it, so if I now want to create another flight, so I go flight F2 is equal to new flight, you'll see that I've got two methods I can refer to. Do you guys get that? Now, also, when I go system.out. Look, if I go print line, look at how many different print line methods I have. So they've got the exact same name. What is the difference between those methods? Anybody?
What they're returning.
It means that there can be multiple different methods with the same name, but it will receive different parameters because you might have different things. So in this case, we've got one in our log class. We've got one getTotalFlightTime which receives nothing. Now we can what's called overloading it. So we at overload. I don't know if it's going to allow me to do that. It likes that. It doesn't like it. It only likes overload that. You don't actually stipulate overload. Anyway, this isn't overloaded, so I'm going to say overloaded just as a comment then. Now, when you overload it, literally what you do is it's called the exact same method. I can even just copy and paste this whole entire method because it's going to follow similar things. But in this case, it asks, instead of receiving nothing, it says the overloader method which will receive the destination and receive a total flight time of that destination. So in this case, it says it's going to receive a destination. Now you'll notice it's going to be happy with this because we've now got two methods of the same name. One receives nothing and the other one receives destination. So you'll notice in my test GUI, when I go log, if I want to now test this total flight time, if I now go site to Drakensberg, I then go plus l dot get flight time. You'll notice there, what am I seeing? Two different methods of the same name. The one you send nothing to, the other one you have to send a string to. So now I send a string, I can say Drakensberg. Now, to explain this method, because I did see a couple of people getting confused with this method, you'll notice there that there are two flights to Drakensberg. One takes 120 seconds, the other one takes 70 seconds. So total flight time for Drakensberg is there's 190 seconds or minutes, so I think it's maybe in minutes, not in seconds, so 70 seconds you're down there, has been taken to get in flight time to Drakensberg. Okay, so now from there, you'll notice there that the Drakensberg's gone through, but now our method does the same thing, but we don't want it to do the same thing. In this case, yes, we're going to loop everything, but we only want to count the ones We only want to add the ones where the flight time, sorry, the destination is Drakensberg. So what you can do is highlight that, because you don't want to do that all the time. You only want to do it when, so you can say, okay, I want to surround it with an if. So now I'm saying only if this, then do it. In this case, we want to check only if flights position I dot get destination dot equals string another string. Do you guys get that? So I'm just saying only if the destination is equal to the destination, we'll look at total flight time. So if we look at our text file, what should our total flight time be to Drakensberg?
120. Oh, 190.
190. So 120, nope. 100 plus 70, 190, nope, nope. Do you guys get that? So it will only add the ones together which are with that. So if I press play, 190 seconds, minutes. I really should have checked this and have said seconds in the two string. Well, even think 190. I don't know how long it takes. Anyway, not the point. Okay, so now on this, if I want to show you a slightly different way of doing this, just purely on the basis of I don't know what, just because I want to. What you could also do is, it's also completely acceptable for you to create a method in here, public boolean is destination, return this dot equals destination. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm comparing the field destination with the parameter destination, and I'm returning the Boolean statement whether it is equal to each other. Then in my log class, I can just flights is destination, and I send to the destination. So you could get the comparisons. I mean, it's semantics. There's no real difference on what you do there. It's just your guys' choice. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to leave this there. I just wanted you to be aware that it is possible that you can get the comparison to happen in here. And sometimes you would want to override the equals method. And the equals method, you could then work with how you would determine whether two objects were equal to each other. But I'm not going to go into details of that because that's not as important right now. Right now we just need to get the basics, or the base level of understanding right. Now here we've got this working, and I think that's this question here done. Now it says create get number of flights will return the total number of flights flown. Okay, so we now go to our log class. We run public int get total flights, open brackets, close brackets, so number of total flights, number of flights, things, not total. And guess what we can do here? Return num flights. That's all it's really asking. And it says overload the method get num flights, which will return to the destination. This is a little more tricky. It's only when it's to the destination. So now we'll do the same thing. Get no flights. And now we actually need to loop through. So we'll say int num is equal to 0 semicolon return num. The parameters are the same. Return num. Thank you. Okay. Now for tab. Yes, thank you. Now here it would have been easier if I kept that is destination in, right? Because then I could have just called this destination. But now we're going to have to go flights position I dot get destination dot equals. So if we had done it previously, it would have been easier to destination. Open curly brackets, then num plus plus semicolon, and voila. Now we're going to test these two methods. In my test GUI, I'm going to add onto there site num flights full colon space plus l dot get number flights semicolon site tab num flights to Durban full colon space plus l dot get num flights send there Durban, sorry, it's called Durban. Now, so we tested if it runs. If I press play, number of flights 5, total flights to Durban 0. Let's take a look at my flights. Right enough, I have no flights to Durban. Okay, go figure. So Drakensberg. Hopefully, I can spell Drakensberg correctly. Hey guys, please be aware of this during the exam. The amount of times I spend running things, wondering why there's an error, meanwhile I spelled Drakensberg wrong. Things like that, there can be an error, which is very, very frustrating because you look hours through the code, meanwhile it's that. So, okay, 2 flights to Drakensberg, such returning correct. So my methods are working correctly. I then go to the next question. It says, create a user interface to test all features of the program. This is a user interface. It tests all of it. So what I can do is I can just go dup dup, dup dup, dup dup, done. My user interface is created that will test everything of my full marks for that user interface. Do you want me to show you the GUI, a GUI version of it? This test is fine, but there can be a GUI version of it. Alright, now on from there, if you want to create a GUI version of this we'll go, I'm going to, ironically, my test GUI is inside my working package, which it should be inside my user interface package. So I'm going to create a package called GUI, and I'm going to move my test GUI into my UI refactor, and I'm going to then also create a new Java JFrame. So I create a new JFrame, and this is going to be my GUI tester. My GUI tester, I'm going to start off by setting my layout to be border layout. I'm going to put a panel in the bottom of my border so that I can put some buttons and things here, and I'm going to put a text area in the top of my panel so I can have text displayed here. I'm going to change the variable name to txt display. I'm then going to put my stuff in here. So I'm going to have various buttons. I know I need to test display all, so my toString. I know I need to test display total flights. I know I need to a destination. So I need then a button to destination, but then I also need a text field for the users to input the actual destination. Now that's going to look ugly. It already looks ugly actually, but anyway, whatever. I'm then going to put a label over here to say that this is destination. So edit text destination. And on the destination, I'm going to make this a bit longer so I'm able to work with that.
So why don't you take the label away and put the destination like in the... Does that make too much sense? Yeah.
What label?
Like the destination label, and you rather just put the...
So you may not recording.
Oh, no, yeah. Okay, so now I'm just going to add here display flight time. So you guys get this is flight time to that destination, and then the last one, I'll keep recording this and I'll display it to you when I've got display num flights. Okay, now when you've done this, you should name everything you have to directly refer to. So I'd name this txt destination, so I'd have to refer to it to get information from it. And then each of the buttons I'll code to. But the first thing you'll do in your source is you'll create a field. Thank you. You'll create a field of your log class. So log. That's quite funny because log is not actually going to be available on there because it's imported from the other class. Okay, so when you're doing with this, the naming unfortunately has made my life difficult because it's inside a different package. I now need to actually import that package to get it in here. Okay, so to make my life easier, I'll go import from package working log class, so that I'll be able to refer to the log class more directly. And then I can ignore that if you guys just typed it in correctly, we would have imported it if you use Control Spacebar. I've got that. And I'm going to call it log semicolon. I'm then going to initialize my log inside my GUI. So log is equal to new log, and it's going to ask me for the text file. So we're going to say flights.txt. It's then going to throw me an error because we haven't reported the exception. So I'm going to surround the block statement with try catch. I'm then going to change the error message to sir cannot read from file spacebar plus ex.get message, so we'll display the message that occurs there. Now you can also then give an error message to the user, so you'd use the option pane.show message dialog, and what you'll notice in the show message dialog is also overload, and you can do different things, send different titles through to it, different types of messages. So for example, I can say here and use that one, and I can say this is the forefront, and then asks for a message, so error in reading file for colon space plus ex.get message. So you'll notice that then it will then allow me for a title, so I want to add a title to this, so I can say whoa, failed man, or whatever, and then message type. Now here you'll see that there's a G option pane I can actually use. There's different message types here, so I can say, okay, I want a cancel message, or I want an information message, or a no option, or a whatever. So in this case, I'm going to say error message because it is an error message, so it'll display as an error message if there is an error. So for example, if I now made an incorrect file, so it's called flights.txt, not a flight.txt. I've got two different GUIs now, so I need to change which one I'm running from. So right-click properties, run, and I'm going to change it to my GUI now, so it'll run my GUI. And when I press play, you'll notice that it comes up with an error dialog because I said, wow, failed man as a title. So you can use ones with different parameters, or different number of parameters. In this, you didn't have to refer to the message type and the title, and it would just then be a default message box, or you could do it as a more parameterized one, so you can stipulate it a bit better. After we've done that, we want to test out different things. We want to create methods to display, so I'll create a private or public, whatever, public void display all, and display all would go txt display dot set text to be t dot toString. Sorry, I'll log log dot toString, and then for my public void total flight time, I'll then go txt display dot set text, and I'll set the text to be log dot toString, dot total get total flight time, and then I'll have another one public void. I obviously need it's an integer that I'm setting through this. I need to say total flight time for colon space plus. So remember, I'm converting this. This returns an integer. By adding a string to it, it converts it to an integer. Total num flights, and for there, I'll just say txt display dot set text to be total num flights for colon space plus a log dot get number flights. Now we want to get for destination public void total time destination, and in this case I'm going to then go first I'm going to get string destination, and you get that from txt destination, so the text file not display because that's the one we're displaying, destination dot get text, so we'll get what the user's inputted. We're then going to do the same thing as we do up here for the total flight time. The only difference is now is instead of running total flight time like that, we're going to say destination to destination test. In that case, we'll return that to. This is just good. So then say total flight time to whatever the user inputted as destination, or they get the total flight time to that destination. So that would do. Now we're going to do the same sort of thing, except now we're going to do it for not for get total time destination. We're going to get total time total num destination, and in this case, get the destination string. Same thing, get num flights to destination, and then now we'll say get sweet, done. Now what we need to do is we need to link our methods, our buttons to those methods. So display all should run our display all method. Sweet. Our double click on it, display total flight time, which should run our display total flight time, and our I should have kept a naming convention so I should remember what I call these things. And then display total flight time, flights is that one, and this one is display flight time destination. So total flight time destination, total time destination, sweet. And the next one is this one, display number of flights to destination. So total time destination, total number of flights destination. So I used the wrong one here. Total number of flights destination, sweet. Okay, so I've used all the right ones. I now press play. Well, I didn't change the text file, so I got an error, so it was on your screen, but I didn't remember to change the text file name to be the correct file name. Press play, and it will then pop up with it. So now we test it. I click display all, bam, all displays. I click display total flight time, bam. Display number of flights, total number of flights, 5. Destination, I'm just going to enter darkness because we know that one exists. Display flight time, total flight time to Drakensberg 190. Display number of flights, total number of flights, Drakensberg 2. So all my buttons work, sweet. Okay, goodbye guys, enjoy.